OpenClaw may be in some real trouble. We see that Anthropic had announced that they're banning some features when it has to do with OpenClaw. That was a few days ago, but today they actually announced that, anti-gravity is also banning some services on OpenClaw. But why? Let's get right into it. One of the major issues for people who are using OpenClaw is how they're actually accessing these models. One of the things that you're supposed to use for external use from Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude is using an API access. And this is very important because later on, this may cause an issue with all AI models and may ban OpenClaw permanently. But you're supposed to use an API, which is a way to access these models outside of the system, which give you a token limit. Usually it's a few dollars per million token input output cost. But what people have been doing is using Gemini, been using Claude to access the model, not through the API, but using it through the OAuth token. And if you don't know what that means, let me break it down to you. Basically, if you have a Gemini subscription and you're on the Ultra plan, or you're using Claude and you're on the Max plan, basically these subscriptions, these higher tier, the unlimited plan, so to speak, has way higher limits, maybe even unlimited in certain use cases. And they're using these Max plan subscriptions. There's a kind of like internal API key that's supposed to be used within the Claude ecosystem if you're using Claude, or inside the Gemini ecosystem if you're using Gemini. But what people are doing is using the internal OAuth API key, so to speak, and linking it to Claude or OpenClaw. And what that means is OpenClaw is then running 24 hours a day, every second, and it's causing a massive amount of resource drain on these AI models. Some of them are using Opus models like Opus 4.6, or even using Gemini 3.1 Pro. And these are like the biggest models that drain huge resources. With Opus 4.6, you see that it drains $10 per million token on the input. So if it's running 24/7, making requests every time, this is a huge drain, and they could be running up thousands of dollars worth of bill, but they're only being charged that maybe $200 a month subscription fee, which is getting around what they should be doing. If they use an API, then they would be charged correctly for their usage, but they're doing a workaround. There's been people that said they use OpenClaw, and just saying hi to OpenClaw took about 3,000 or 30,000 tokens, something absurd, just to say hey to OpenClaw and get a response back. Even though that may be more of a optimization issue on how they should be using OpenClaw and not really OpenClaw itself, it still speaks to maybe the vibe coders and people who aren't very technical on how OpenClaw is just consuming massive amount of resources, and people have been doing this for weeks. There's also people who are using a free tier for a software, let's say Gemini, where they have a free tier on AI Studio, Vertex, the trial spaces. Even on anti-gravity, you can use their latest 3.1 Pro model, but you can also use Opus 4.5. And people are getting around it by using these models on other platforms for free, basically by doing the trial periods, burning through all the token limits on that one account, and then turning it to a new account using a new email address, new account altogether, and then burning it out again, which are huge resource consumptions on a free tier. So people are using maybe 10, 20, maybe even 100 accounts to drain the tokens without having to pay for anything. And why this is a problem is because people or companies like Gemini or Google, Anthropic, that uses Claude, they can kind of withstand the pain. As you see, they're getting billions of dollars of investments, so they can withstand it, but it's still not good for the company long term. But let's say a smaller startup wanted to use or is making an LLM, maybe like a Manus, maybe some of these companies using a wrapper on top of a ChatGPT, on top of a Claude, on top of a Gemini, this would hurt a smaller company a lot more because you're burning through way more resources and they're not getting the $1 billion investments. They're getting maybe the hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of investment in these type of services. And so even when it comes to open source like Kimi K2 or even Quinn, all of these other models, Minmax, DeepSeek, Llama, would probably have a similar issue if they have an OAuth token, like a plan tier, like a pro tier than a max tier, and people are using the max tier to get around the actual API costs. And that could be really bad if you're an OpenClaw fan, because people can then just start banning OpenClaw outright. But what we're seeing now is that they're not outright banning people from OpenClaw, but they are banning the people who are using this exploitation. And even though there may be tutorials around OpenClaw that may even tell you to do this, you need to be cognizant of what it is, because even Google has said this is part of their TOS, their terms of service, and doing and hooking up OpenClaw to Gemini is against their terms of service, and they are kicking people off. Same thing with Claude. Claude had made a recent update to their terms of service that is targeting people who are doing this. They're not banning OpenClaw outright forever, but they're banning people and banning how people use it. And you are now forced to go through the API, and now they're putting restrictions in place. It may have been even cool if it was a few people that were doing it at certain points in time, but a lot of bad actors maybe ruined it. Maybe people were using the OAuth token to do small projects and was still on their ultra tier or still in their like max tier and was able to get away with it because it wasn't harming them too much. But now we're seeing that this is becoming much more of a problem. Tell me what you think. Do you think that this is a problem and this is the way to go about it? Or do you think a lot of these AI companies are blowing overboard and they should just let people who pay the higher costs on subscriptions to use the model unlimitedly in more convenient, creative ways? Whichever way you think about it, your boy Dexter out.